The whole point is to display your activism and penchant for public performance of one's political piety.
The idea of helping people to identify privilege as compared to others in a way that it might otherwise be invisible is crucially important to intersectionality and helping people to support each other's movement. But it has definitely gotten to a point where privilege is being treated as gambling chips. So if I'm Black and a woman, that means I have less privilege than a white man and therefore can not only be authoritative toward them, but if a Black gay woman comes, suddenly I cede the floor entirely to her. And if a Black gay disabled woman comes, then that's the person who has the most credibility.
But the problem is that if everyone's doing that, then the whole thing loses value because you're not going to particularly stand out for doing it. People had to constantly raise the bar to be allowed into these kind of virtuous communities.
Exactly.
You listen.
And you really want to silence all our voices.
Are you trying to silence us right now? Is that what you're trying to do?
A couple of years after that culture started to emerge online, it did start to move into the world of college campuses. Even the terminology that became common in online spaces about safe spaces and microaggressions and trigger warnings and things like that started to become part of campus activist culture. The bar, again, was so high, you couldn't really gain entry into the world of acceptable thought on campuses unless you ticked a lot of boxes. Anyone who wasn't quite fitting in could be kicked out.
There's a certain sensitivity about what can and cannot be said. But the response to when people transgress, right, when you say the thing that's not politically correct, then there can be a really harsh backlash all across the internet.
No, I don't agree with that.
Then why the did you accept the position?
Because
Who
I
the
have
hired you?
I have a different vision.
A social justice warrior, or an SJW, is a progressive who is shrill and obsessive and who won't stop judging you for what you say.
We are not speaking on terms of white privilege. This is not a discussion. You have lost that one.
I am talking about...
In the far-right imagination, SJWs are the root of all evil.
There's a social incentive to engage in group trolling. You're showing not only your own position within your group, but defining who's outside.
There are some people who, I don't know if they're naive or they're just ambitious, but they always think, I will be the person who the mob doesn't turn on for some arbitrary, stupid reason. I will not make a mistake. That person was only punished because they did something to deserve it. I'm good. I will follow all the rules. It's like, honey, there's no escape in the mob.
It's under the Obama presidency that we've seen the displacement of a political economy from left politics and the privileging of a performative approach to politics. The Obama presidency marked the triumph of a sort of left identitarian neoliberalism.
The Democratic Party, for a long time, ever since third-way Democrats decided to align themselves more with corporate interests and get away from labor interests, have relied on identity as a way to kind of hold on to their progressive bona fides. By having a certain amount of diversity at the top and advocating for diversity in corporate environments, Democrats could appear to be better than the Republican alternative. And that's all it takes in a two-party system. It's a lot easier, and it also doesn't challenge the status quo at all.
Most Black people and most Latinos are concerned about their jobs. Discourse displaces considerations of a political economy, and thus the possibilities of a serious class solidarity.
The consequence of that has been that it has made people who are alienated economically and alienated in other ways, even though they're white and or male, they've been made to feel like they don't have any place in the national conversation about what it means to suffer or hurt.
Let's say you're like 16 years old, right? You live in some suburb, and you're white and male and middle class, but your prospects are low. You got two internets to choose from. One internet says you're congenitally racist. You have already participated in rape culture by consuming the dominant media. You have offended someone 10 times by speaking in a common language that you would use with any person on the street. And then you have this other internet that is full of rebellious kind of comedy. You are, in fact, encouraged to indulge maybe some of your most forbidden interests. And you're 16. You're experimenting with doing things and saying things that are offensive. You're trying to find that line. Which internet are you gonna choose?